Hey guys, welcome to today's episode of The Edge of Analytics. I'm Caroline Wright. I'm sitting here with Aaron Harte today, who's a solution architect here at CCG. Aaron, what is a solution architect?
A solution architect really gives us the ability to assess a client's needs and develop a right fit solution that's platform agnostic, meaning that we don't have a preference for software technologies. We put the best fit with the client to solve their problem.
So you come in and you just say, you've got a problem. I'm not going to come in and tell you, here's something out of a box to fix it. I'm going to tell you, here's a customized
Exactly.
method.
As a solution solution architect, we really listen to the client, and we have an obligation to listen to what the problem is before we propose the solution. So a lot of times we sit there silently, we listen, and then we react to that client's problem with a solution.
Such a consultant answer. So I've actually had the privilege of working with you for a couple years now, I think. How long have you been here?
I've been here almost 3 years.
Almost 3 years. Well, happy almost 3-year anniversary.
Thank you.
We worked on an ebook recently, at least end of last year, and I learned some awesome things about you that I'd love to share with the world. But you worked on, and refresh my memory, you worked on an actual national database in education. What was that? Your education background?
I was engaged by the National Center for Education Statistics in Washington to create the Common Education Data Standards. And what that is it's a glossary of educational terms and definitions along with use cases so that a district or a school or a state can justify collecting those data from students about students, and it's for the benefit of students.
So sort of guidelines on what you can be collecting, how you collect them, and how you use that information?
That is correct.
That's really cool.
It's a voluntary standard, so it's not mandated by the federal government. However, currently 22 states currently use Common Education Data Standards, and the EdFi Alliance, which is a consortium of schools, districts, and states, actually based their process on the Common Education Data Standards. And we're currently on version 3.0. So
That's awesome. Are you still involved in education at all?
I am still involved in a consulting aspect.
Well, of course.
As far as direct involvement, that's been transferred to Washington, so that's a public standard that anybody can use, and I'm consulting from time to time with them.
That's awesome. That's got to feel cool that you've helped create something that is now in so many schools and so many districts and helping
It's
them.
fantastic when someone calls you and says 3 years ago when you did this. I have to think about it a little bit.
Oh wow. Awesome. And I know you've worked in so many industries, and I want to touch on some of those as we get a little later, but the reason I really brought you in here is we're in this really exciting time in the data and technology industry where we've seen a huge shift, a transformation, to be catchy in marketing, but in how people are actually collecting and maintaining their data. I sat at the Gartner Data and Analytics Summit 2 years ago now when the keynote said, data warehousing is dead. And all of us were like, oh gosh, no one told me. But obviously, we know what he meant. It's more the old form of data warehousing is dead, and there's a new wave. Can you tell me a little bit about what is the new modern data warehousing?
Okay, so we have to talk about that. We'll talk about what data warehousing was before. Data warehousing was born out of a need to provide business users with data. And the information technology team was in the job of collecting all those data, defining all the business rules, and it generally took about 2 years to deliver a data warehouse. Obviously, that's too little, too late.
Business rules change pretty often.
Business rules change, data change, business changes. Things really were not moving at the same velocity as business. So the paradigm shifted where business now started to drive these data warehousing projects, and then from that was born business intelligence. Business intelligence really was data warehousing from the business side down, where data warehousing was from the IT side up. What's changed today is that the variety of data that we have structured data, your traditional SQL Server, Oracle, SAP, it's very structured. We have semi-structured JSON files, XML files, so flat files that are coming in from systems, and then we have images, we have videos, things that are totally unstructured. All of those are valid for business, and the traditional data warehouse could not handle that. They couldn't handle the variety or the volume of data that really was coming in. And as business wants to innovate and leverage the data to make decisions, they need that data almost real time. And traditional data warehousing just didn't deliver. Unfortunately, corporate data warehouse 1.0 is dead. So,
so the Gartner did not lie to us.
They did not lie to you. Corporate data warehousing 1.0 did die. Mm-hmm. And it served its purpose in the industry. However, business moved faster. So
what has replaced corporate data warehousing 1.0 in today's modern world that needs all these different data sources?
So today, we're taking a much different approach than we took in the past. In the past, IT required very rigorous business requirements and business rules to be able to construct a data warehouse. Mm-hmm. Those things took time, and everything changes. So in today's model, it's more about obtaining the data. So it's an extract, load, and then transform, as opposed to the 1.0, which was an extract, transform, and load. One of the other things is our use cases have changed. We've moved away from descriptive analytics, which some people might refer to as dynamic reporting, mm-hmm. Into prescriptive analytics, discovery analytics. And so adding those additional features, the data needs to evolve and needs to take different formats. And a single format's just not going to work. For example, if you have an operational report, that's great. However, as you know, operational report is a snapshot in time and doesn't really show you where you are today.
Right, so it's really evolved as businesses are changing the way they look at their business. But can this new modern way of ELT instead of ETL, can it support both? So can it support that traditional means of maintaining operational, here's your revenue reports on a day-to-day, as well as those streaming awesome customer dashboards?
Absolutely. It really becomes a situation where the data has not been transformed as it's loaded, it's transformed as it's consumed. So if a consumer is a finance officer who wants to see reports delivered on a daily basis, that still works. If the customer is a marketing director who wants to see how successful a campaign is and wants to see real time, how many folks opened the email today, how many folks clicked on the link, that's more of a real time. And then there's also predictive analytics is, how many folks do I think are going to respond to this campaign? So it really serves all those needs, where original data warehouse was focused just on descriptive analytics alone and static reports.
I mean, that sounds awesome, but what does that look like from a technology standpoint? So we can say, now you have this new version, but the old one took 2 years and it didn't do nearly what the new one does.
Well, what's happened today, innovation with cloud, we no longer have limitations on storage. That was what constrained us. That's why our requirements had to be so constrained. Terabytes, 10 years ago, a terabyte or a petabyte, folks would have run away from that just based on the cost. But with today's cloud storage, we don't need to be selective. We can bring all of the data in, and we can gain insight from those data and really serve a number of different needs. And what it looks like in an architectural standpoint is it's a cloud-based system generally, and you're doing your schema or your formatting when you read it. So analytics tools, for example, data science tools, they all work off this same repository of data. It hasn't been constrained to one usage, such as descriptive analytics.
Well, and I mean, we've had actually another Edge of Analytics episode on cloud. I can go on for hours about the benefits of cloud. But I know some industries are still a little bit hesitant, especially some of those that are a little more regulated. I know you have a lot of experience in healthcare. Have you seen some of these more regulated industries like healthcare respond to this new modern way of data warehousing?
Well, originally, I think the first reaction, I worked in healthcare for a number of years. I worked with healthcare. I saw virtual private clouds. So basically, a private cloud was created on site, and it was in the cloud, but the cloud was essentially still in the data center, and they maintained that. Now, of course, they still have to maintain. There's maintenance costs, there's growth costs for storage, and it's not easy to maintain that environment and grow that environment. So what we've seen in the cloud is an evolution of more secure cloud services than there traditionally were in the past. So, for example, the government is using cloud-based systems now where they typically wouldn't have done that in the past.
Right. Yeah.
And with healthcare, I think there's an evolution. I know that there are still some constraints with HIPAA. And honestly, it does have teeth. It can bite. So a lot of folks really are kind of reticent to move into the cloud right now. However, the cloud has matured to a point where it has that level of security.
That makes sense. I know I touched on it, but I didn't actually get to ask you. So you've worked a little bit in healthcare. Can you tell us a little bit about your background in that industry specifically?
Yes. Actually, I worked in Connecticut with the state of Vermont to create the first regional health information organization. And it was an interface between a physician's practice, well, I have not mentioned, and hospitals. So we were exchanging data using a standard, an HL7 standard, healthcare level 7, to allow physicians to transmit data about patients to a surgeon in the hospital, and the surgeon could then transmit that information back to the individual's primary care physician and provide that continuity of care. And we really were the trendsetters. We were Nancy Johnson, who was our senator at the time, brought insurance companies, brought doctors, brought practice managers into a hotel room and said, I don't want the government to fix this. I want you to fix this. So they locked us in a room and we fixed it.
So next time I need something, that's what you do.
That's right, exactly. They did provide us with food, and it was a great hotel. So
there you go. But you just like putting your name on big monumental things in different industries. It's awesome.
Yes, it is fun.
I mean, but what's amazing to me is there are these leaders, especially in healthcare, that see the capabilities with using data and analytics for good. I know I sat at MicroStrategy last year. They had a world conference, and we heard from Children's Hospital in Boston, and they're using a shared cloud database to track the spread of diseases in different suburbs of Boston. Like how, of course, it makes so much sense, but the old archaic way of writing down everyone's case files is never going to allow you to do those things. So it's just as more and more of these use cases come out, I think you're going to get more, maybe not leniency with HIPAA, but you're going to at least get more of these leaders that are willing to think creatively and kind of embrace some of these new technologies for good.
Right, and I think the technology really has reached the point where it is secure enough. However, major data breaches in the past, combined with a perception that the cloud is somehow less secure than a traditional, on-premise, those are changing. And as that shifts, I think the industry will feel more comfortable. You'll see more of those types of interactions. And they really actually have to take place. Data is growing faster than we can consume it, and healthcare data has the potential really of being this wealth of information that can help a lot of folks. Especially when you talked about the CDC, there was a project that we worked on probably 10 years ago or more, where we were reporting flu cases to the CDC. The CDC was creating analytics to show where the spread of flu was across the United States. So if you've ever seen those maps, perhaps, right, that are colored, you could watch a progression of the flu season and watch the flu spread across the country in pockets. And that was probably 2001, 2002 when they were doing that.
Yeah.
So, but they had a mandate to collect the data, and I think that's where the issue really comes down, is the trust within the data.
Yeah,
and how it can be used.
Initiative. Well, and I'm excited to see personally what machine learning and some of these more advanced technologies, these really computer processing can do for us in healthcare, especially. I know IBM's trying to apply Watson to curing cancer, and honestly, I think they'll get there before a person does. I'm optimistic. I think it's exciting.
Well, I also think, you mentioned Watson. I mean, I think we've all seen that commercial where Watson is the plane whisperer, right? That revolutionizes aviation. Fix a problem before it becomes a critical problem, and that prescriptive analytics really allows them to be proactive on their maintenance and keep the planes in the air. So, healthcare, same thing, monitoring someone's vitals, monitoring someone's disease conditions. So, for example, HEDIS, worked with diabetes patients and HEDIS panels before, and by managing the patient, they actually reduce the amount of time the patient spends in the hospital and the amount of dare I say, comorbidities, but things that are associated with that disease state. So by monitoring data, they really do improve patient care.
It's amazing. It seems like every day there's a new, just incredible use case coming out for what our industry is doing. It's an exciting time to be here.
Right.
So, you obviously sitting here all cool, long hair, have done this for a couple of years now. If there's someone out there maybe in college or maybe in another career that they're not loving, considering a career in consulting and in data, what advice would you have for them on how to get into here?
I would definitely say information management systems. So understanding data, how data relates, is extremely important. And learning how to model an industry, a business process. We can't just make this up as we go along. We have to understand what business our client is in, model that process, and then look for those key performance indicators. What is it about this process that's successful or less than successful? Because if we can measure it, we can change it. And I think that's one of the things from someone just starting out with data, is understand information management systems, understand how the industry generates data and consumes data. And from there, it's a wide open field. Every industry uses data.
Well, and what I've seen, which is great, is it seems like as these advances are coming out, these big major players in the technology space are willing to try to invest in making more technologists and help educate more individuals. I've seen a lot of training resources coming out from a lot of the big players. Gartner Magic Quadrant, and I think every single one of them has free trainings on every single weekend. I know you've been involved on some SQL Saturdays and other events, and I think that's just showing this awesome change in a culture as an industry to be more collaborative, to help grow data scientists, to help grow solution architects from the ground up and invest together, which is really exciting.
Right. And we need more data scientists. It's an appeal.
Yeah.
There is more data than there are folks to create the analysis, and it grows incrementally every single day.
Yep.
Where in the past, your medical record may have been written down and stuck in a file. I mean, there's folks now that are augmenting their own medical records with their family history to help their physician, and physicians have said this is great. I may not remember to ask all these questions. However, if I give you an open forum on your EMR to be able to enter those data, and most of us carry cell phones, and that cell phone is generating location data, and it's not all just fluff. It helps identify where there's spots, gaps with cell phone coverage or data coverage. It also helps, I think, identify things that are great in your area. I'm one of those folks that doesn't like to turn location on my phone, but if I go someplace new, I'll turn that on because I get a lot of insight. These things are happening in this particular area, these events. Wine and food festivals or concerts. So, and for those that are new, we're fortunate enough to, live in the state that most people vacation in. But also we have a lot of great resources, a lot of great sites that are driven by your location that's here. So
all that's got a data scientist behind it, helping program all this stuff.
Do not fear the data.
Do not fear the data. That's a good one to leave with. Well, I would be remiss if I let us end as a marketer. I know that you must be wearing that shirt on purpose. What is Idera? I've heard you mention this before a couple times.
Okay, so Idera, and some folks may know Embarcadero, they may have heard it by other names before. What it really is it creates a business glossary. So it allows a business to inventory the data assets that they have and take those data and put definitions around them, put security rules around them. Can we use this information to create a report? Can we use this information to market? So it's really important for an industry to understand that the data they own is a huge asset, and they need to leverage that asset. So Idera gives a way to present those data to everyone within the organization, and it empowers everyone from business analysts to folks that are totally non-technical. It's all browser-based. It is definitely, I would say, a very useful tool if you're doing data discovery or data science. What do we have? It's also important for security, which you can actually set security. I've worked with an organization who actually put a security rule in, so anytime any personally identifying information was added to the system, they got an email, and it let them know that a name or an email address had been added, and so that way they could manage that policy. And it becomes a tool to facilitate data governance within the organization.
I know that's so important right now.
Data without data governance is chaos. So with data governance, you can really wrangle your data and gain insight. And obviously, if you gain insight from it, you can change your business. You can change how you serve your customers.
So in this modern transformative data era where we're embracing the modern data warehouse, something like IDERA will help anyone, a data scientist, a business analyst, to prioritize that data, apply security, apply governance, and really help fill the gap for maybe some of those more traditional ways that we had in version 1.0 that went out the window.
Absolutely. It socializes the data, and that's important. I think we're seeing a synergy now of data coming together. It's not so IT focused anymore. It's the business who really needs the data, who's driving these types of initiatives, and IDERA creates the synergy between the technical folks who are, bringing this data in and the business folks that need to consume it. So there aren't those misconceptions. I thought you were bringing me a name. I didn't get a name. Those types of things.
That convergence of IT and business.
Convergence of IT and business, correct.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I really enjoyed our chat today. Hopefully everyone out there did as well. And maybe we'll have you back to talk about, version 3.0 of data warehousing.
Fantastic.
Thanks so much, Aaron. Have a good one, everybody.